Hello and welcome to the 46th episode of Jedi Eternal. I'm one of your hosts, Andrew Bolin, alongside my best friend, and don't leave your computer anywhere near him,
Wait, what?
Braxton Taylor.
I don't know what you're referring to on
You
that
do
one.
know what you're referring to. This man has computer issues like no other.
Oh, well, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. It's not my computer. It's not my computer.
But it's in your hands. This guy computer is broken like every other day, and so we were talking about it earlier. So I just
It's a work computer, okay? It's not my personal computer.
But I did say one nice thing.
Well, I'm glad you kind of balanced it out.
I balanced it out this time. I know you've been offended.
You said a nice thing about me, and then you brought out like a crippling, stress-filled thing that I'm dealing with recently.
How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good. Doing good. I'm glad to be on the podcast today. So
good.
How are you?
I'm doing all right. I have a story to tell, but we'll get to that in just a minute. First, before we get into anything else, I want to kind of just right off the bat talk about our plans for our 1 year extravaganza. As some of you may know, we are right around the corner from us being on Jedi Eternal for a year.
Yeah,
which is kind of crazy. We just want to kind of give you guys a little heads up on what is planned for that. So, first off, we'll have a normal podcast episode. But this is going to be we're going to be doing something that a lot of people have asked for. A lot of people have been waiting for us to do since the get-go, and we have purposely waited. And that is to do our ranking of these Star Wars movies. So we're going to rank all of those. Who knows? Maybe we'll even throw in the TV series somewhere in there. I don't know, but we're going to be ranking all of that. So that's going to be a really interesting time. We'll dive deep into our reasonings.
It's going to be so good.
I'll be interested to see how me and Braxton's lists compare. All of that. It's going to be a good time. So make sure you. We might release that a little early. We'll let you guys know. That might end up being released Friday night instead of Saturday at 2. If that is the case, we will of course let you guys know on all of our social media.
Yeah.
And then also part of the celebration is we are going to have a big live event for you guys to all be a part of. We're going to be playing games. We're going to have the big reveal of our merch store.
Oh, yeah, baby.
We're going to also have a big giveaway. So you might be getting something from our merch store and maybe even an upcoming book release. So be around for that. And we'll be maybe bringing on some guests.
Oh, my goodness.
And just a lot of stuff. In celebration of our 1 year. And that's going to start. That's going to be on Saturday, I should have my calendar.
I think it's the 30th, right?
Well, hold on a second. Yes, the 30th. Yeah. Saturday, the 30th at 5 o'clock Eastern Time. So we wanted to try to make it a time that everyone can be a part of. Hopefully all of our friends over in the UK will be able to join us for this as well. And so, again, that's going to be at 5 o'clock. We have all kinds of stuff planned. It's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah. So make sure you are a part of that.
Yeah, super excited to do that. Sage is going ham on this squeaky ball. No, but yeah, we just kind of want to bounce because I know, even if we start at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, those of you in Greenwich Mean, it's going to be 10, so it's going to be later for you guys, no matter what we do. But it's going to be super early for the people like in California. So it's trying to balance it. It is difficult. That's the difficult part about people having people, all over the different time zones and stuff. So anyway, we're super, super, super excited to do that. I don't know, just so many things going on, and just to celebrate our 1 year, that's just a really, really cool achievement. And so anyway, yeah,
it's going to be a lot of fun. So with that being said, I had an eventful week.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So this is this infamous story you're telling me about.
Yeah, I wanted to tell you on the podcast because I figured it was interesting enough that it'd be fun. It's something funny to tell everyone. So I decided I was going to do the backsplash in my kitchen this week. Okay,
nice.
And so I've never done that before, and so I figured that I would attempt it. And so I got the tools for it. I borrowed it from my cousin. He's nice enough to allow me to borrow his stuff.
That's nice.
Monday night. And so like Tuesday, I'm going to start on it. Well, things kept happening this week that would not allow me to get started on this project. Okay.
Yes. Actually.
And so one of these things was Tuesday. Ended up to make a long story short, I ended up getting a new refrigerator. And so I had to get rid of the other refrigerator. Somebody came to buy it. It was quite the event trying to get that. You've seen my refrigerator; it was massive.
Yeah, very big.
It was hard to get it out through the doors because it doesn't fit through the door. And
Came
then
with the house.
and then this guy brought a trailer and he didn't
gosh.
really have any straps or anything for it. It was a big long thing.
Oh wow.
So we finally did that. And then I had to go and get this other refrigerator that my parents were giving me because they got a new refrigerator, and I'd already helped them get their new refrigerator in.
Nice.
And now I'm bringing this one to my house to put in. So lots of refrigerating going on, and
yes.
Hopefully I never touch another one.
Bob Vance.
So, anyways, I had this refrigerator. It's 10 o'clock. When it's finally in my house and stuff, and me and my dad are like, you know what? We're feeling good about it. We're like, let's hook up the water line.
Yeah.
And now listen, I've never had running water in a refrigerator. I've never had ice in my refrigerators growing up. This was the high life, getting this hooked up, right? So I hook it up. This is crazy. This is something I've never experienced before. I'm living like never before.
Oh, naturally, the king of the castle. So.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm gonna go to bed, and my wife is gonna wake up, and she's gonna be so excited. She's gonna be able to use it, pour some fresh water in her cup, use the ice, and she's gonna be like, "Wow, my husband's awesome." And
but
so I go
to her surprise,
so I go to bed. Well, I wake up the next morning to my wife frantically running into the bedroom, and she goes, Andrew, there's water all over the house.
Oh, no.
So I get up. I start walking towards the kitchen. There's standing water all over my house, puddles.
Wow.
Yes. So the water line had came loose.
No.
And it flooded my house.
Oh my God.
The entire kitchen floor was full of water. My living room was full of water.
Oh wow.
It even went back into my daughter's room and into her carpet in there, which was
oh wow.
So
oh, wow.
Yes, it was everywhere. It was not.
I wonder why a fan was on in there.
This was not a. Well, did you also wonder why our rug was out in the front
Honestly,
yard?
I didn't really notice that.
Yeah.
I wasn't paying attention, but it makes sense now.
Anyways, so you know what? Hire someone that knows what they're doing if you're going to do something like that.
So, moral of the story.
well, and I, actually, I don't know exactly what went wrong, but my dad's done that many times, and he's the one that hooked it up. So,
blame on him.
So I don't know what happened. I don't necessarily know that was his fault as much as something was messed up with the plumbing. But anyways, yeah, water everywhere. So then I'm dealing with that all of Wednesday. Needless to say, things have continued to happen to the point where we're here on Friday, and I still have not got my backsplash done.
So, my man was living in Camino for a little while, or Camino for a while,
Yeah. And so, well, if it kind of felt like I was like in a swamp or something, and I had this water, my feet is literally water up to my ankles in some areas, and then and then I got all these plants that my wife has everywhere. It's just I was living out.
It's you're living Jumanji over here.
in Jumanji, so
Dagobah or something.
Anyways, yeah, so that was a lot of fun. It's been a week to remember, that's for sure.
I'm glad you had a good time.
I don't know that I would say I had a good time, but often we don't really go too much into our personal lives on here. But I felt like that was a story worth telling,
worth documenting
and
for the ages.
I'm sure everyone is enjoying my suffering. So.
Well, if it makes you feel better, I'm enjoying it. So.
Yeah, well, I knew you would too, and that's also why I figured you'd get a good kick out of it. So that was my week. I'm
not going to talk about mine.
Well, yeah. Well, you already heard a little glimpse of his. His computers don't work when he touches them. So,
yeah, long story. Anyway.
But moving on, let's actually get into some Star Wars now.
Stuff, yeah.
Now that you guys have heard about our weeks, let's just jump right into the news. Now, don't forget about all those things we just talked about that's coming up. don't forget about those events. That live event we're going to have is going to be a really awesome time, and we definitely want you guys to all be a part of it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so jumping right into it, our first news story is Star Wars Empire at War gets big patch 15 years after release.
Wow.
Now, some of you may not know what Empire at War is. Some of you may just have said, wait, is he serious? Yeah. Yes, I'm serious. The old PC game, Empire at War, which I owned, but I never had a PC that could run it. I would...
Yeah, naturally.
About every other month, I would put the disc back in, hoping that somehow it would magically work, and it never did because my computers were old.
We just prayed over it every night and hope the RAM would just naturally grow or something.
God would naturally put a new graphics card in my
Our new RTX 3000 or something.
Anyways, here's the thing. They, along with some fans that just really care about the game, the community, they have collaborated to make this this big patch for it, which has introduced a decent amount of content that never made it to the game.
Yeah.
Alongside a bunch of just quality of life changes and fixes. And this is a game that was from 15 years ago, so it's just interesting that there's still people out there that care enough to do this stuff to it.
So was this an official like was this a fan thing or was this official update?
I believe it's pretty much just a fan thing. I mean, at this point, whoever developed Empire at War, I'd have to look it up, but I mean, who knows if they're even a studio at this point? I don't really know.
They're developed by Petroglyph Games and published by LucasArts. So Petroglyph, I don't even know. I've never even heard of them, so probably not a big studio anymore, if I had to guess.
Let's see here.
I'm clicking on
this here says that the previous update dropped in 2018, so Petroglyph has been regularly taking care of the game.
Oh wow!
I think that they're taking care of the game, but I don't know how much of like that developers truly like working on the game as much as like fans are working on it, and they're like helping them implement it into it officially.
Yeah. That's pretty interesting though. I mean, I'm glad that if people are really enjoying it and things are getting updated on it. That's obviously awesome, you know.
Yeah, I think it's cool that a game that old can survive for so long and even be getting an update.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially in times where these days like a game has a lifespan of, some games have like a lifespan of a year, and then they just like drop drop all content and support for it. So I think it's cool to see something like this survive for so long and still have people that care about it. So.
I agree. Yeah, and here's the hoping that we get some new games and all these new game releases we're getting with Star Wars games.
With Lucasfilm games.
Lucasfilm games, excuse me. That hopefully we get some games that's going to last that long too, because people like it so much.
Sure,
so,
yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. All right, so our next news piece for this week is Andor series. So the Cassian Andor series that we have been long waiting for apparently won't have K2SO in the show, at least at first, according to Alan Tudyk. So, you know, obviously that is kind of like a rumor because we don't know it for a fact, but we figured we'd put it in the news because since Alan Tudyk is kind of the man himself, you know, he's saying this. That's a pretty credible source, naturally, the person who plays K2. So, I don't know. I mean, we talked about this multiple times in the past few episodes. It is completely possible that he's lying, and he wants this to be this big reveal. But I tend to believe him a little bit on this, and that's why, again, we put it in the news. But I will say that I think that most likely, especially since he said at first, it's one of those things where Cassian hasn't met K2 yet, and then as the show progresses, then we're going to get that character to come in. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say you're probably right on that. I do think it's kind of weird though that this is being said now, because if you remember back in 2019 at D23 they brought both the Cassian Andor actor Diego Luna, I believe is his name.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
And K2SO's actor, they both came out there and were talking about this show they were doing together and everything. And then, we went to Celebration and we sat down and watched them interview Alan about him coming and doing this show. And so it's interesting that that now he's all of a sudden like, well, I'm not in it right now.
Yeah, we're not in it. Yeah.
And it's like, wait, what? I mean, you've been talking about this show
Right.
for a long time.
Yeah.
And so to me, that tells me there must have been some creative changes that have happened,
Right.
some story changes that have changed since back in 2019 when we were hearing a lot about this show for the first time.
Right.
Which is natural, I think, for things to have changed between then and now.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as far as why he's not in it, I agree with you. I think it's probably because they're waiting for a certain point to bring him in.
Yeah.
And I mean, he basically says he's eventually going to be in it, right? I mean,
Well, he says at least at first. So he won't. The show won't include K2SO at least at first. So he's trying to kind of give this presumption that it's possible, but he actually doesn't know.
So he says right here, they're shooting it right now. I'm not in it, but if it stays on the air, stories keep getting told. I'll end up in there.
Well, I mean, there's like 1 billion episodes compared to The Mandalorian, and rumors that it's going to go on longer. I have no doubt that K2 is going to be in it. For those of you who care about K2, I wouldn't be too worried. I highly expect him to be in there.
Yeah, I do too. It's just weird that
It is weird, though.
this change has happened. But yeah, I'd say eventually he'll be there. It maybe sounds like he's not in the first season though.
Well, I will say this though, because initially the way they talked, just right off the rip, he's going to be in there. He was going to be in the first episode. That's the way we presumed anyway because of how they talked, and when we went to some of the panels and things of that nature, like you said, that's what we all kind of felt and thought. But I will say that. Like you said, with creative differences, that's always possible. And we thought that the Cassian Andor show was going to come out in 2020. We thought for a long time that was going to be the case. But we never, and all of 2020 came almost and went by. And we didn't even get a name for it until the very end, So obviously there were some differences and creative differences. And obviously, the pandemic, stuff like that, that's going to affect it. But overall, I definitely think that there's just probably some creative differences. And they to maybe give some ability for the show to last more than one season, they want to maybe set it back maybe even further in time where he hasn't met K2 yet, and then that way people want K2, so they're like, oh yeah, let's wait till season 2 or whatever, and then we can get K2 in their first meeting. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, who knows? We'll see what happens.
All right, well, let's go to our final news story of the day, and this is a new Star Wars book that has been revealed. Straight from StarWars.com, and it is a biography called Skywalker, A Family at War. This is to be released spring of 2021, and it is being written by Kristen Baver. I don't know that I've ever heard of her before.
Yeah, I haven't either.
But yeah, she's basically telling the story of the Skywalkers in a biographical,
biographical.
Yes, thank you. Biographical version of it, I guess, in a sense, and
That's
kind of
cool.
treating it more like a real history,
like a more
type.
historical type. Yeah.
So that should be pretty interesting to read. I'm sure I'll pick it up.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know that we have an official release date just yet, but it is going to be sometime in the spring.
Yeah, that's actually really cool. That seems like a very interesting. That seems like a very interesting concept. I like the idea. I love historical biographies, and the fact that they're going to take this series of events that happened to the Skywalker family and create something similar would be very, very interesting. So, yeah, I absolutely think that that'd be really cool.
Yeah, she has on here, she said, from the outset I knew I wanted to treat the family as if they were real people with compassion and empathy, while simultaneously crafting an unflinching portrait of their accomplishments and their failures. These characters are larger than life, yet so fragile and unmistakably human, and that comes into focus when you study how their actions impact the greater galaxy and their family. And it goes on to say that, this will start with Shmi Skywalker and go through and with, Luke and Leia and Anakin, Luke and Leia, and then of course with Ben Solo. So
yeah, and Rey.
And actually it does mention Rey.
Oh wow, okay.
It does mention Rey.
I knew it was gonna have it on. It just made
it. I think it did. Let me see if I can find.
I would be
that.
surprised, obviously, but
it does say Rey. Information goes son Anakin, ultimately his grandson Ben Solo, and the scavenger Rey. So there you have it, folks.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. That's apparently you can just graft people into the bloodline like that. Yeah. Whatever. Whatever. Yeah. I'll digress. But anyway, no. But for real though, that does like seem like a really cool project. And I would definitely wouldn't mind reading it. There's not a whole lot of books that I would really. I'm saying like that I gravitate towards, but that concept definitely, sounds really interesting to me. So
yeah, I'm definitely interested. I think it'll be cool. So
yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah, so let's jump into our rumors. Our first rumor today is Star Wars Jason Isaacs on the possibility of playing a live-action Inquisitor.
Yes, very interesting.
And talking about the Grand Inquisitor. And I'm trying to look for his quote here. Do you have it written down?
I remember it. Basically, he says they're asking him about the possibility of being in Star Wars, and there's rumors that he was going to play as an Inquisitor, and he just simply said it's possible. And then he goes on to say, I had the coolest wand in Harry Potter, and I could have the coolest lightsaber in all of the Star Wars movies. So something to that effect, maybe not verbatim, but to that effect. So I think it's definitely possible. I don't know what movie that they would make that would necessarily have the Grand Inquisitor in it as we know him, or what would make it applicable. But I don't think that Jason Isaacs would be a bad idea to play him though.
No, I mean, if we're looking at the timeline, I believe the Grand Inquisitor could show up in Kenobi.
Yeah, okay, I can see that.
Technically,
yeah.
As we've heard, it doesn't sound like at least from what we've seen so far, it doesn't sound like the Inquisitors are necessarily involved in that story as much as some other kind of team of Jedi hunters that doesn't appear to be Inquisitors from what we're hearing.
Yeah.
But who knows? Maybe some of the Inquisitors will show up.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously the Grand Inquisitor would be over all the Inquisitors, but in my opinion, I don't know this for a fact, but I would imagine that the Grand Inquisitor would be over all Jedi hunting overall, right? So whether that be Inquisitors or any efforts within the Empire that covers Jedi hunting, right? As the Grand Inquisitor, I think that he would probably cover all those responsibilities. Yeah. So it's possible that he would be over this group that's going to be coming after Kenobi. You know?
I think like the Grand Inquisitor, had direct involvement with Palpatine and Vader, which Vader I don't think was a huge fan of the Inquisitors.
No, no, he did not like them.
and this, I think, if we do see Kenobi, or if we do see like Vader hunting down Kenobi in this, I don't know that he'll have the Emperor that involved. It's probably going to be more of a personal thing, and so since I don't think he's a huge fan of the Inquisitors, he may not even. That's maybe why the Inquisitors aren't going to be chasing Kenobi, because he's going to have his own team of people he wants.
Maybe some of some kind of clones. We talked about this before, but maybe like some kind of like augmented clones,
we talked
like
about
the Bad Batch or something like that. Who knows?
Interestingly enough, I saw a picture. This is getting a little off topic, but I saw a picture of the Bad Batch, and a picture of a stormtrooper group that they revealed in the Star Wars comics, in the newer Star Wars comics. I can't remember what their names were, but they were like a squad, and anyways, they had like the pictures side by side, and it kind of looks like it could be the Bad Batch, like a later version of the Bad Batch, like the same people.
Really interesting.
And it's got similar roles, similar builds, different stuff like that. And it makes me wonder if that might eventually be what the Bad Batch ends up being, is this stormtrooper group.
That would be interesting.
Now, if that is the case, it does mean they're bad.
Yeah.
But
well, and like I said, that's one thing I'd say is like, that would be a pretty dark ending to the Bad Batch.
It would be, yeah. And I struggle to see that being the case.
Exactly, and that's what my initial thought is as well.
I struggle for this animated, I assume still a kid's show mostly, for the end result of that show to end up showing the origins of a villain team.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't see Star Wars
telling that story.
It's hard to
believe that. Yeah, especially
but
like Disney.
There's a lot of different things out there that kind of make you think, okay, the Bad Batch could technically end up being this team of bad guys, and I think to me, it would be very, very interesting. But
Yeah,
I
I agree.
still struggle to see them truly doing it.
Yeah, I mean the concept is fantastic, but yeah, the actual execution of it would be very stretched in my opinion. Especially since like I said, we know that Lucas is over it, or excuse me, Disney is over it.
Yeah.
And just as an overarching person, and I just don't see Disney taking an animated show, regardless of who the intended recipients are, right? And saying like, well, hey, if this is tied to us in any way and it's animated, naturally a lot of kids are going to watch this, and we don't know that we want that. You know what I'm saying? I could see that being a conversation that's being said somewhere. So
Sure.
So anyway, it's a very interesting kind of off topic there a little bit, but for the most part, it is interesting to talk about that, and if to see maybe some Inquisitors in Kenobi or how that's going to work out. So overall, though, to kind of wrap back to the original rumor, though, I do think that Jason Isaacs, if they did have something that he could play a Grand Inquisitor, I think he'd be a pretty decent role for that.
Yeah, no, I think he'd make a great Grand Inquisitor. So.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so let's move on to our second rumor for the week, and that is the Ahsoka series supposedly casts Lars Mikkelsen as Thrawn, supposedly, as the rumor says. So as many of you may know, in the Rebels series, Lars Mikkelsen was voiced by...
Yeah, actually, I want to make one thing clear just to people who don't understand who that... Before we jump back into that,
okay.
The previous one we were just talking about, I do want to make clear he is the voice of the Grand Inquisitor. Just to those that don't understand that. He is the voice, but we think it would be cool for them to bring the actual character, his actual look into it, which I think they kind of modeled after him anyways.
Well, Jason Isaacs has always been the classic villain in a lot of movies, so he has the mannerisms and the look, so yeah.
And now this kind of goes into what we're talking about now as well, so go ahead.
Right. so to complement that, Jason Isaacs was the voice of the Grand Inquisitor, but Lars Mikkelsen was the voice of Thrawn as well. And he has the look too and stuff. So this actually kind of calls back to a similar reoccurring issue in the conflict between Disney, Lucasfilm, and the fans and things of that nature, right? So we have all these rumors of like Jason Isaacs, the voice of the Grand Inquisitor, possibly playing him in live action. Lars Mikkelsen, the voice of Thrawn, possibly playing him in live action. But so we had Ahsoka, and the voice of Ahsoka didn't play her in live action. So, that does kind of make me feel like it doesn't give a ton of credit to the rumors to some degree. But I will say this, is that one thing you also have to consider, though, is that Jason Isaacs does kind of look and act like the Grand Inquisitor. Lars Mikkelsen, I truly believe, could look and act like Thrawn, and I think that was kind of the big issue with Ashley Eckstein, is that she sounded, of course, like Ahsoka because she was the voice, but she didn't really look like her. I don't think her mannerisms would match up a whole lot, just like on a physical level. So anyway, it's just interesting that we're hearing this outcropping of all these rumors of like these voice actors coming to reprise their physical roles. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and we've been hearing about Lars doing this for a long time, or at least people wanting it to happen.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, the first rumor that we've heard now saying that he truly is playing it.
Yeah, it's not just like, the fans want this.
Yeah, I think this is the first time we're seeing like he has been cast.
Yeah.
Now, again, it's just a rumor. We don't know, but we know Thrawn is going to be cast, right? Like know he is going to be. You
got to see him at some point.
He's going to be in live action. Right. It's inevitable at this point. That we already know they're leading towards that. Mm-hmm. The question just is who will play him. And for me, I think it should be him.
Yeah, I think it's a great choice for it.
That's my thoughts on it. We already recognize the voice. I think that plays a big part of it, but also I think he has the appearance for it. I think he can make it work.
Yeah.
We've seen some crazy stuff out there, like Robert Downey Jr. playing Thrawn, and no, thank you.
Yeah, no.
And Pierce Brosnan. I mean, we've seen that, which actually would kind of be cool.
Wouldn't be too bad. Yeah.
But no, I think he's just the right choice.
Because here's the thing, like naturally, I think that we're used to the voice. We automatically connect it. Because here's the thing, hearing sound is one of our most powerful senses, and we associate a lot of emotions and feelings and thoughts and things towards what we hear. And that's true with a lot of emotions, but sound is a very strong one. And so when we see a character in animation, we automatically identify that character with how they sound, the voice. So I'm just saying, and from my perspective, if you could take a voiceover artist, a voice cast artist, whatever, and you if they could get them even somewhat close to looking what the character looks like, I think that's a better option than have someone who looks almost exactly like them in their interpretation, but not sound anything like them. You know what I'm saying?
And as we've seen for a lot of these characters that have jumped over, their animated versions kind of look similar to their real life look of them. And now Ahsoka was the exception. They made her look different from Ashley. Ashley doesn't look like Ahsoka really.
Yeah.
But like Bo-Katan and stuff, she does. I mean, they used her face basically.
Yes, pretty
you know
much,
what I mean?
yeah.
And so, I think moving forward, I think they're going to think about that more now so than ever before. Anytime they bring in a new animated character, I bet they try to make that person look kind of like the actor themselves.
And why not? You know, so if you find someone that you really like as a voice actor and you think that their voice and how they speak and their mannerisms fit that character in your mind, why not just go ahead and just make them look like it? Because in our mind, we kind of already have these conceptualizations of what we think someone looks like based off their voice. And if we just heard something over the radio, or I'm sure you guys think of us when you hear your voice like these big, strong, muscle-bound guys, you would be sorely mistaken. But that's probably the thoughts you get off of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But so anyway, my point is that if you go ahead and start making the characters and draw them to look like the voice actors, I mean, I think it's a win-win all the way around. So anyway, so any more to say on that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Well,
sorry.
What are you doing over there? He's distracted. It's your turn anyway, so.
Oh, my apologies. My apologies, everyone. Wait, no, it's not.
Yes, it is. You did Jason Isaacs.
Okay.
See what I have to deal with, people? Come on.
Okay, our third rumor for today is talking about, the crossover events that we're hearing about that's going to happen between the Ahsoka show, Boba Fett, the Rangers of the Republic, all these different shows are going to eventually have a crossover. And IndieWire was speaking with Pedro Pascal, talking about upcoming storylines for Mandalorian Season 3, and also just those connections to all the spinoffs. And he had this to say. He said, "I am told what's happening and what the plan is, but I can't share it. They are in the expansion of this world where there are so many unexpected surprises and timelines that are going to be dealt with. If the character were to cross over into these worlds, it will be utilized in a way that isn't meant to be expected. I wouldn't want to spoil the surprise of whether or not characters from the show we already know are crossing over."
Interesting. That's a lot of stuff right there. A lot of words to unpack there.
Yeah, I think for me, the big thing to notice here is that he said timelines.
Right, and he said like in crossing over into worlds or whatever. Now that can be a kind of a generalized statement of saying like the world of Mandalorian, the world of Ahsoka. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but you heard it here first. Confirmed. The world between worlds is. No, I'm just kidding.
No, please. No, please.
No, but I do think the timelines thing is interesting. To me, that makes me think that, again, maybe some of these shows are not dealing directly with the timeline you may think they are.
Right, exactly.
And maybe they're jumping from different timelines. It's only we're just gonna have to wait and see. But it's also interesting that he already apparently knows where this is headed.
Yeah, that there's already like a plot line already kind of like sketched out.
And we know that they're pretty secretive about stuff. So it's interesting that, at least according to him, he's already been told. And so I think we will probably start to hear some stuff about this sooner than later, about kind of where all this is headed. As you guys know, we're getting Boba Fett at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say before we get Boba Fett at the end of the year, we'll probably have started to hear what they're leading towards.
Right. Like, what's the foundation, at least?
And I'm not saying Star Wars themselves are going to tell us what they're leading towards, but
right, like
more
leaks,
like
though,
leaks and rumors will probably start to kind of give us an idea of where this is headed.
Right.
Again, I have said, I hope this is leading to a new version of Heir to the Empire.
Yeah.
I think it would be cool if they even called it that. Just call it Heir to the Empire.
That would be sick.
And basically, it's just all these characters we've gotten from all these different shows lead into a 2 to 3 hour event movie that is on Disney Plus. That is them the conclusion to all of what this is built towards.
Yeah, I would not be mad about that at all.
Yeah, I think that would be cool. Again, I have nothing to back that up with other than just I know Thrawn is coming sooner or later.
So, I mean, so why not bring it back in? You know what I'm saying? I mean,
yeah. And, of course, it'd be different than the original, but that's fine. I think it'd be cool to kind of do a retelling and with some of the similar themes and stuff.
Yeah.
But anyways, so that's just something to think about, what all he means there with that and the timelines and, of course, unexpected surprises. We've come to expect that. We've come to expect the unexpected at this point.
Yeah,
because,
exactly.
Now, after 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, both of those seasons having one moment that is just was mind-blowing.
Yeah, like jaw-dropping crazy things.
Yeah, of course, in the first season, it was the reveal of a baby Yoda, which now is common to us, but back then, when it first was revealed, was crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
And, of course, the second season having lots of surprises, but the biggest one being the return of Luke Skywalker.
Yeah,
and so,
huge stuff.
Yeah, so it's I'm just so excited about where this stuff is leading, and we'll just see what happens.
Yeah, I agree. And, I'll just say, like, there's a lot of cryptic language that Pedro was using there, but like I said, like as time progresses, I have a very strong feeling, like you said, that things are probably going to get unpacked a little bit more, and we'll hear more about it soon. So, all right, so our final rumor for this week is regarding the Kenobi series. So this is a series that is very high in anticipation for a lot of people, especially us. But what's interesting is that there's a rumor saying that the Kenobi series has some kind of secret connection with the Andor series. This is kind of a stretch. Obviously, this is one of the more stretchier rumors that doesn't have a ton of content here. But what's interesting, and Drew might have some more on this, but when you look to the IMDb casting list for both of these shows, what's interesting is that it shows the actress Denise Gao, if that's how you say her name, on both rosters, on both actress lists, whatever, and that she should be in both of those. So it's very interesting. So the same actress being in the same 2 different shows.
Yeah. Now Lucasfilm has already officially announced her to be playing in Andor.
Yeah.
But she's not been announced to be played in Kenobi. And so there's either 2 things here. Either this is a character that's crossing over into both of these shows, or it's a mistake and someone has accidentally put her on both of them, and it was meant to just be on Andor. That's a huge possibility. But just to entertain the idea, anyone that's interested, you can look her up if you'd like. Look up what she looks like. And then, if you were just to imagine what kind of character she may play, just kind of look at her for a second, and then I'm going to tell you who I think there's a possibility she could play. Okay, here we go. Look at her, and then look at a picture of,
I'm looking at her right now.
Satine.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely plausible. It's definitely plausible.
Now, this person, it's my understanding, the person who kind of brought this theory up. This isn't necessarily a rumor as much as it is a theory. She brought this up because she noticed they were in both IMDb character roles or whatever, but then also that she kind of resembles what maybe Satine would look like.
Right.
And I don't know what the voice actress for Satine looks like, or even who plays. Maybe that'd be something to look into and see if they used her likeness or not. Because if so, then you'd think maybe they would use her. But anyways, so here's the thing. Well, during these timelines, Satine is dead. That's correct. Kenobi could very well use Satine in in a flashback of some sort, which we're already expecting these flashbacks.
Right.
And so, of course, to show but what you could consider the love of Kenobi's life, it would make sense that maybe she could make an appearance there.
Exactly. And that was my thought with it as well, is that, I mean, you got to think, when Obi-Wan is, this is all fresh, this is raw, his brother in arms just, essentially betrayed everything they knew, overthrew, the Galactic Republic and joined, this new empire and the Sith and all this stuff like that, Maul killing his love of his life, all of this. So now all of a sudden, Kenobi's in the desert by himself, nobody there. He's going to be left with his thoughts, you know what I'm saying? So naturally, I almost feel like some of the flashbacks that we're going to be getting, regardless of what they are, is going to be almost like PTSD moments, where he's just kind of like sitting there and like he's just flashing back to these moments of like being with, Anakin, or being with Rex and Cody, being with Satine, being with, whoever, right? And I absolutely think that's going to be a huge part of it. And so one of the biggest regrets I'd imagine in his life is with Satine up to this point, and if not maybe Anakin, but you know what I'm saying,
right? So
I could easily see that being a part of it for sure.
Yeah, and then you look at where Andor is presumably taking place, and it doesn't really add up for why Satine would be in that show. We have no reason to believe that Andor is going to be having any events taking place during Clone Wars. So the only logical answer there would be that Satine somehow is not dead and she's alive. And I just don't see really the purpose in that.
I don't see the purpose other than them trying to give like Obi-Wan some kind of like
he
fulfillment,
like he did end up having
that romantic relationship.
While he was on Tatooine.
But I don't know. I just don't see that happening. I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I don't either. I think that would be maybe a little silly.
Yeah.
So that's where this whole theory kind of falls apart for me.
Right.
But it's something to think about. Again, potentially this character is in both series. She may not be playing Satine at all. Maybe she's playing someone completely different.
Sure, yeah.
And so I guess we will just have to kind of wait it out and see. But yeah, if you guys have any ideas on that, let us know. We'd like to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's all we have for our news and rumors today. We're going to jump into releases. And for releases this week, we have one comic issue coming out. That is Bounty Hunters 9, issue 9. That'll be coming out on Wednesday. I believe that's really the only thing that's coming out. But we did want to kind of give you guys a High Republic update. As you guys know, the High Republic just started not too long ago, and so I have now finished Light of the Jedi, and I just finished a Test of Courage yesterday, actually. Where are you at, Braxton?
Well, like I said, I'm honestly only a couple chapters in. This week has been pretty crazy for me. Something has happened every day, so I had no chance to read at all. So unfortunately, I'm not super into it yet. I do plan on reading it more this week, but so many more things happened this week too. So we may not. We may have to do a review, and I might have to get spoiled. I guess I don't know what's gonna happen.
We don't want to wait too long for our spoiler discussion on these stories, so we may have to end up spoiling it for Braxton, so we can do it a little sooner than later for you guys. But I finished Test of Courage, and it was good. It was not as good as Light of the Jedi, but it was still entertaining, and the second half was better than the first half to me. And the second half deals with something that I was actually really surprised that this middle grade novel was dealing with. Kind of a little bit of a surprising turn of events that I think could be interesting to see where that goes as the High Republic continues.
Right.
And so we'll definitely talk about that more as we get closer to our spoiler discussion of these stories. But just a reminder, also I've read the first issue of the High Republic comic, which was good, and I'm excited to see where that goes as well. But just a reminder that Into the Dark by Claudia Gray, which is the YA novel, it is being released here not too long from now. I believe we're about maybe about a week and a half away or so. And I am actually reading that right now. Thanks to Disney for sending us that. So I have started on that, and so we will be reviewing that soon. I'm very, very early into it, just like a chapter or two into that. So I don't really have much thoughts on it just yet, but I'm excited to see where that one goes, just because, as we know, Claudia Gray is pretty amazing. Now, the other thing we want to mention with that is that the Into the Dark by Claudia Gray will be the book that we are going to do a giveaway for on Saturday the 30th. So if you're interested in winning that book, make sure you join our live stream, and we'll give more details on how to win that book during the live stream. So
yeah, it's gonna be super exciting. Like I said, and as we've said a couple times before, this whole High Republic thing is so awesome because we know the ultimate ending 250 years later or whatever, but it's all these hundreds of years of activity that we don't know anything about. So it's gonna be really cool to delve into that. So anyway, if you've read High Republic and you're excited to read the next installment of the series, of course this is going to be for you, this giveaway. So anyway, we encourage you to come and hang out with us on Saturday, and we'll definitely be able to do some cool stuff there. So
yeah, really excited about that.
Without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get into our Q&A for the week. So we have several questions this week. We have 4, and we have several from Alex still. So again, we say thank you to Alex. It was funny. We had like 10 questions from him or whatever, but we loved it because we always have something to ask every week. So we always appreciate that.
Yes.
So we're gonna have 4 questions this week. We're gonna do 1 from Alex and then 3 that we got for this week.
Yes, we always love the questions. Keep them coming.
Absolutely,
it means a lot to us.
It really does. And this honestly is, again, we've said it a million times, but it's probably one of, if not my favorite part of the podcast. So
absolutely.
We have some really good questions on deck this week. They're always good stuff, but all 4 of them are like really deep, you know what I'm saying? Really deep stuff. So anyway, so the first one this week comes from Alex Mason, who says, I've been contemplating what would have happened if Anakin actually killed Obi-Wan on Mustafar. Would Anakin have got to Padme to save her? If she died, would he have taken the kids, and which would completely change how Luke and Leia would have been? Or would she die and the kids still be put into hiding somehow before Anakin knew, making it to where possibly Luke never becomes a Jedi unless someone like Ahsoka found out about him and trained him? So I think the first, let's dissect this real quick. So the first part of the question is, what if Anakin actually killed Obi-Wan on Mustafar? And would Anakin have got to Padme to save her, or would she have died? So go ahead with your answer, because I have some specific things to say. But go ahead.
I think Padme would have died either way. And the reasoning is because of what George Lucas has told us. I don't necessarily like it, but if you take what George Lucas says, Padme didn't die from giving childbirth.
Right.
She died from a broken heart.
Right.
And so no matter what happened there, she still dies from a broken heart, right?
Yeah.
And
right.
So, because Anakin can try to do whatever he wants, but in the end, her heart was already broken. Right. And so, yeah, so I don't, I've never really necessarily liked the fact that she dies from a broken heart.
Right, it's kind of like weird way.
I think dying from the childbirth
makes more sense.
Yeah. But George Lucas has been pretty adamant that that's not why she dies. She dies from the broken heart. And so, I think either, no matter what happens in that battle, whether Kenobi dies, and he takes her or anything like that and tries to save her, I think she still dies.
Sure, I'm on the exact same place with you. She would die either way. Okay, but here's the thing. So first of all, to kind of tie in that next part of the question, you say, do you think that the kids would somehow be putting in hiding somehow before Anakin knew? Well, there's no way that would have happened, because Padme and Obi-Wan came to Mustafar, and basically Anakin choked out Padme, rendering her unconscious for a little while, and then the fight ensues between him and Obi-Wan. So if he killed Obi-Wan, he would have just went back to the ship and got Padme.
So he would have the kids.
He would have the kids. So my point is that no, they would have never been able to go back in hiding at that point. There's no one there to take her anywhere. So yes, I do think either way she would die. But if Anakin killed Obi-Wan, then he would have had the kids because he would have been able to take her to some kind of medical droid, as happened in actual series of events, and they would be able to deliver the kids, or if nothing else, have an emergency C-section type thing, right? So, I guess then let's tackle the last part of the question. So to answer the first part, yes, Anakin would have gotten the kids, and yes, Padme would still die. So now that he has the kids, how is that going to change things? I guess that kind of answers that question, right? So how do you think things would change for Luke and Leia now that they're with Vader? Or
that's an interesting question because as we know, when Vader does realize he has a son, he wants that son to join him,
right?
And the big reasoning for that is at that point in time, Vader already has started to, in his mind, think, I've got to take down the Emperor.
Yeah, as normal secession of all Sith goes.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
But at this point in time, it's only just begun. His apprenticeship to Palpatine has literally just begun.
Exactly.
And so he's not necessarily probably thinking about taking over. And so with that being said, I feel like if it was an older Vader, Vader would hide those kids, train them to become whatever he wants to be his, like whatever, proteges or whatever. But keep them hidden from the Empire or from the Emperor himself, so that the Emperor doesn't use them to whatever. But at this point, when he's young, and I think maybe he would involve Palpatine more,
right?
And so, in the end, I think it would be Palpatine's decision what happens to the children. Yeah. And I think Palpatine would utilize them in a similar way.
Yeah.
But probably even in a worse, but like it would be worse.
It would be an adjunct position, like an Inquisitor, right? Like it wouldn't be like, oh, this is Vader's son and daughter. It would just be another tool on his tool belt type thing.
Well, because everything's just another tool, right? Well, he doesn't care about anyone or anything. It's only whatever helps him to be the best thing in the universe. And so I think he would utilize them in that manner, and probably to eventually take out Vader if he felt Vader needed to be taken out. I think that he would use them in that way.
Yeah, because here's the thing: we know that just to make it apparent, because I know most of us already know this, but Luke and Leia, regardless of whether they was living with their adoptive parents or whatever, or if they lived with Vader, they still would be Force sensitive.
Exactly.
They still had that Force sensitivity.
And as we know, they're both very strong in the Force.
Exactly. So here's what would happen though: from birth, they would be trained in the ways of the Force. Now, the ways of the dark side, but they would be like robots, because like they would have no emotions, right? They'd train them to have no emotions, like little assassins, little Sith assassins. That's what it would end up being.
They'd be horrifying though, I'm sure.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, I guess that kind of answers the question. I would say that, regardless, Padme would die, but yes, if he did defeat Obi-Wan, Anakin would get the kids, and most likely he would involve Palpatine, and they would start training them as to be little dark side users, and eventually they'd grow up to be like probably twin assassins or something like that for the use of Palpatine.
Yep.
So anyway, great question. Super awesome.
We love questions like that. Yeah, and we can just kind of speculate like that.
I love that.
It's always fun.
All right, so second question comes from Kristen Perry, who says, in Fallen Order, they say that the planet Kashyyyk has a strong presence of the Force. However, in the Clone Series, I think you mean Clone Wars, but anyway, we are told that a Wookiee Force sensitive is rare. How does that work? Now, I'm going to go ahead with this because I have pretty specific thoughts here.
Okay.
First of all, they don't necessarily say that Wookiee Force sensitives. That sounded weird. Wookiee Force sensitives are rare. They said Wookiee Jedi are rare. And I think that is that's the foundation that you have to start working off of. So two things I will say is this. First of all, I don't think that just because a planet is sensitive to the Force doesn't inherently mean that the inhabitants will be, right? I think there's definitely a possibility, just like it would be on any planet, and maybe even more of a chance, but it doesn't mean that they're automatically all Force sensitive. For instance, I was looking at the list, Octo, which what we see in the sequel trilogy is Force, it's a Force sensitive planet, but yet those little frog lady things, the little maid things that was running around, we don't see them as Jedi, or we don't see them as Force users. Dagobah, we don't see other creatures inherently, but we don't see a bunch of Force users running around. Dathomir is kind of, we do see a lot of the Night Sisters, which use the Force kind of in a corrupted magic way. So, but not all of them are Force users. I can go through all of them, right? But my point is that first of all, the first point I want to make is that just because a planet is Force sensitive doesn't inherently mean that all the inhabitants can or should be Force sensitive, first of all. The second thing, though, I will say is this. Here's a very interesting point that I wanted to make. Is that there was only, and I think this is definitely legends at this point, but there was only one Trandoshan that was ever a Jedi. And the reason behind this is not because that there wasn't other Trandoshans that were Force sensitive, right? But it's simply because that the Trandoshan culture valued supremacy, domination, taking things over, killing things, which obviously combated with the tenets of being a Jedi. So my point is that I guarantee you that there was way more than just one Trandoshan that was Force sensitive, but only one became a Jedi because of the culture. So let's wrap back to the original question. It never says that a Wookiee was being Force sensitive was rare. A Wookiee Jedi is rare. And Wookiees, as we know, are very kind of more primitive. They're very intelligent. They have awesome technology, but at the same time, they're more primitive. They hold their own. They're combating. They're a warring culture. So my point is I guarantee you that there are many of Force sensitive Wookiee that just never trained to become Jedi or Force users. But just because that they weren't ever trained doesn't mean that there wasn't actual Force sensitive Wookiees. So a lot of words, pretty kind of in-depth explanation, but do you have anything to add to that?
I think you're right on it. I mean, that's exactly what I would have said. But yeah, I mean, the only thing else I would add to that is you have to remember that just seeing a Wookiee in the galaxy was considered rare. Like anytime someone saw a Wookiee, like, whoa, that's a Wookiee. Like, you don't see those every day. And so, let alone, of course, to see a Wookiee that's a Jedi on top of that. I mean, just adds to that.
Well, and you got to think it's not because there was very few Wookiees, right? But it's because, again, they're more of a primitive society, and therefore the Wookiees stayed on Kashyyyk. They didn't go anywhere. And because they were this more inclusive society, I'm sure that becoming a Jedi and self-sacrifice and going to Coruscant to train, so that didn't really gel with a lot of them. You know what I'm saying?
Right. But then, of course, once you get into like the original trilogy, the Wookiees were enslaved, and a lot of them were killed and stuff. And then there actually were a lot less Wookiees than there had been. But even before that, I think it was just like you said. They didn't necessarily go travel the world. They stayed on their home planet.
Right.
So
yeah. So anyway, I think that's kind of the culmination of that whole answer there. But thank you for the question. That's a really, really good question. So thank you for that. Our third question comes from Brandon Dukes. It's good to hear from you, man. I haven't heard from you for a little bit, so it's good to hear a question from you. And he says, we know that Darth Bane came up with the rule of two, and it is mentioned in the prequels by Yoda. However, Darth Bane himself isn't mentioned. So basically saying that the principle of the rule of two is brought up and is talked by Yoda, but not Darth Bane himself. So, how much of Darth Bane's story in the how much of Darth Bane's story and the origins of modern Sith lore are actually canon? So, I will say this right off the bat. While Darth Bane is not specifically mentioned in the prequels, he is specifically mentioned and shown in the Clone Wars, specifically season 6. And I don't remember the exact, it's one of the final episodes, but essentially Yoda is going on this journey in the Force, and he's following Qui-Gon and these like Force sprites or whatever they were in Dagobah and stuff. But basically he's going on this journey, and he's trying to figure out the secrets of the Force. He's trying to delve in and get connected with the living Force like Qui-Gon did. But anyway, my point is that they go and actually see the burial tomb of Darth Bane, and they mention Darth Bane. He talks about the rule of two and stuff. And then, actually, if you remember, and I don't know if it was a hallucination or it was actually his ghost. I don't really remember off the top of my head. But it does show Darth Bane, like this like ghost form of him.
Yeah, it's like some kind of ghost thing.
Yeah,
it's not necessarily a Force ghost because
Right.
that's only a light side thing, but
I don't know if it was an illusion or something like that or projection. I don't remember. I think
it's been quite a while since I've watched
it's been a
that.
while. I want to say it was actually like the Sith had set that up as a trap or something, or it was like a holocron type thing where it projected him speaking. I don't remember, but the point is though, regardless of what that was, is it does show that. It does show Darth Bane like what he actually looked like. It talks about his name. So anyway, he's definitely canon. And not just the rule of two, but actually Darth Bane. So that's cool. I really like that. Now you ask a little more difficult question that I don't know that I can completely answer. You say how much of the origins of the modern Sith lore are actually canon. So Drew, what more could you say to that specific question?
So what we do know, of course, we got all those novels and things about Bane. Excellent novels. Gave us all kinds of information. Those are all legends now. So we can't really. For me, I like to assume that stuff is canon until proven otherwise. So I like to think Bane's original story is canon.
Yeah.
And until they say something differently. But if we're specifically talking about what has been said, we know that the Jedi and Sith war that happened.
Mm-hmm.
We know that's still a thing. We know that happened about 1,000 years prior to what we know of Star Wars. And we know that war results in the end of the Sith. The Jedi destroy the Sith. That's what they also call like the... they had a name for it. I wish I remembered what the name is because... Hold on.
While you're looking for that, I would say that is at that point when the Jedi had pretty much overcome the Sith. That is when Darth Bane stood up and kind of killed all the rest of the Sith except for his apprentice, instating the rule of two because he thought they were made weakened because of the war within themselves of the Sith. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it was called the 100-Year Darkness.
Yes.
During that time, the Jedi Order's Army of Light and then the Brotherhood of Darkness had a big war.
Yeah.
The Jedi win, the Sith lose, but just like you said, Bane is still there. He has not been killed, and Bane, realizing why the Sith failed, changes and decides that there needs to be the rule of two.
Right.
And that's where that comes to life. All of that is still technically canon. We just don't know the exact story of how it all happened anymore.
Right.
We don't know exactly what caused Bane to do what he did or how he survived any of that stuff or how he dies. We don't know anymore the exact story.
Right.
Which is why they might eventually tell that story. I hope they do.
Sure.
Seeing that war would be really cool. And for those of you who don't really understand what that means, like that talks about the Sith War in the High Republic novels.
Yeah.
If you read that, that's what that's referring to is that war.
Yeah.
And what's cool about that is that war was what they call the fall of the Old Republic. So what you're seeing is the transition of the Old Republic to the High Republic.
Yeah.
So right after that, when Bane decides to have the rule of two, and he kind of goes into the darkness, and that's when they kind of go into hiding and just they're waiting for that perfect time. That is when that High Republic era presumably starts.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an interesting thing there.
Yeah, like I said, I'm sure with like a few things, in the future, some of the releases we're going to get through the High Republic, so we might get some more information about that. The Acolyte may have some stuff for us. I don't know.
And there's a good chance some of this stuff could be changed. They could,
True.
Even though some things are considered canon, could still be changed based off what they decide to do with that era of the Old Republic.
They've left it loose enough that it's kind of malleable, and that they can okay, well, we didn't give you enough details to solidify it. Now, if we need to change it because of the High Republic or whatever, these stories, we can kind of have the foundation of what it is the same, but kind of form it to something different. So.
Yeah, and prior to the High Republic, they always referred to that war as the Jedi-Sith War. But interestingly, in the High Republic, it's referenced a couple different times, and they just say the Sith War.
Yeah,
so
that's
I don't
interesting.
know if that's
interesting.
why the change of that was, but
You're right. Anyway, so that's kind of the end of that one. But Brandon, we really appreciate the question.
Yes,
really good
yes.
question.
Good, all of really
all
good
of them
questions.
have been really good.
Really
all
good.
of them really good. So our fourth and final question comes from JB himself.
JB,
and this is a little bit of a lengthier one, but we wanted to go over all of it because this actually is not necessarily about Star Wars, but it's more about the podcast. And we really want to talk about it because this is something that we had been talking about, kind of discussing amongst ourselves already. But JB says, recently I've been thinking about replaying some of the Star Wars games like Fallen Order, KOTOR 1 and 2, and etc. And it got me thinking, wow. Anyway, got me thinking, how would you guys feel about maybe once a month doing a stream for a couple of hours, like a playthrough, story-driven possibly, and maybe even have some people interact and help? I for one would definitely watch, and how would the community feel about it? So those of you who are listening, let us know. Also, if you need any help with it or anything, I'd love to help you guys out, and we greatly appreciate that. And he says, also, you mentioned the other week about maybe rewatching some of the Star Wars films. Maybe you guys could do a watch party. Not sure how they work properly, but could be very interesting. So, first of all fantastic ideas. I'm very grateful and glad that you are interested in that kind of stuff. So the two things that we wanted to address is this. First off, yes, we have done gameplays in the past. And we really did, and we did it with Squadrons, but we really did that with Squadrons because it was new and we wanted to jump on it and stuff like that. But we also have talked about going and playing games that are more story-driven, just like you said, and doing like kind of like a Let's Play thing where we might do some live episodes, but also make some actual videos that we put on YouTube, and you can go and watch them and stuff, and you can just see how we would make our decisions, like in KOTOR 1 or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's absolutely something we've talked about, and we hope to do in the future.
Yeah, and you know, in the end, it's what you guys want to see and hear.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, if we do something, and for example, like if we were to go do one of those and no one watches and no one says anything, and
right.
like then it doesn't really benefit us to do that. And so we have to choose what we do wisely, because you know, this is unfortunately it's not like this is like a full-time job for us.
Right. This is like the sixth job that we have.
So like so with that being said, we have to choose wisely what we do when we get together,
right.
and we would love to do those, but we also need to know that that's something you guys want us to do, and we'll be there to like kind of back us up and support that. So,
for sure. Like I said, obviously there's some of you that we know that would like it, like JB, but you know, if those of you who are listening who don't maybe communicate a lot, you know, and you just rather listen and stuff, that's totally fine. But times like this, we would love for you to chime in, because like, hey, you know, I may not interact a ton, but I would definitely watch it though, or you know, something like that. Yeah. We'd love to hear from you on that. Yeah,
and starting into our second year of Jedi Eternal, our plan is to have more video content.
Yeah, for sure.
That is our goal this year, is to work on some video content for you guys. Yeah. And part of that will be more Let's Plays and just trying out different video games. You know, we're still fully planning on doing the new Lego Star Wars.
That's actually what I was about to say.
That's going to be a big one for us. We'll probably attempt to play through the entire game recorded, so that we can post those on YouTube for you. Yeah. So a lot of video content planned. It's just, but also again, like let's throw this out there. Mm-hmm. If there is a certain game that you guys would want us to do, let us know, because we fully plan to try this out with an older game of some sort or something. We've already talked about how like that's something we want to attempt. But if there is a certain one that you guys really want us to do, let us know what that is. Yeah. And that will be our first one. We naturally kind of lean towards starting with KOTOR. Yeah. But if there's something different, let us know. We'll jump into anything if that's what you guys want. So
yeah, I couldn't say it better. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And so we have kind of our predilections that we would want to go with, and our things that we like. But if there's something that you guys are just like burning, it'd be so cool if you guys play this or do this. We want to hear it. So anyway, JB, thank you for the question, and thank you for kind of addressing some of those things. We definitely been talking about that. Oh, I do want to address this final thing. He talked about the Star Wars films and doing a watch party. Something we would love to do. I don't know how yet. We're still kind of trying to figure that out, legally speaking. We'd love to just like stream the movie, right? And then have our like little box in the bottom with our faces, but that's not very legal.
Yeah, I don't think we could get away with that.
Yeah, it'd be the best way, the easiest way, but I just don't know how that would work.
I think basically what we'd have to do something like that is basically tell, okay, everybody start it at this time, and then we'll do a countdown, 3, 2, 1, press play. And then we would just have commentary on it, but like you guys wouldn't be able to see it.
Right.
So you would watch your TV, have us maybe on your phone or something,
right,
and you could hear us comment as you watch the movie. Yeah.
I'm also curious to how, like, okay, we may not be showing the screen. This is kind of a question for off air, I guess, but just to spawn conversation, I guess. I wonder how it would be if we're like not showing the screen, but you could still hear the audio of the movie, because we're talking and we're just watching it, but you can hear the audio in the background, so it kind of keeps you in sync with what you are watching as well. I don't know how that works, but we'll try to figure it out.
Yeah, I'm not real sure on the audio. You'd have to think that the audio might still give us issues, and might still force us to like take it off of YouTube or something.
Especially on Facebook, and YouTube.
And I don't know if it's worth the risk to do all of it, and then it just ends up getting taken down.
You just watched a 2-hour long movie, and
I think probably it'd be best even if the audio is slightly off, then they're gonna have that like echo almost between really watching the movie and us.
Yeah.
So I think the best thing is probably if we just have our voices on there.
Yeah.
And we like maybe just have like a headphone in or something to watch the movie, so that we can hear fine. But I don't know. We'll talk more about that as
for sure.
I'm totally not against doing that. Against doing movie commentaries. It'd be fun, and we just point out stuff, talk about things that are interesting about it. But again, it's one of those things like that's kind of a big. That'll take up a lot of time, so like we got to know that you guys want that.
Right. Right.
So we know JB wants it, but let us know if there's others out there that want it.
Exactly. All right, so that's gonna finish up our Q&A for this week. So we again thank everybody for asking us questions and continually giving us that stream of interaction. We really appreciate that. But without further ado, we're going to get into our main topic today. And so our main topic today, and we're kind of running out of time, so we may not go super long on this. Because there's not a ton to say, but we're going to get into it. Anyway, so our main topic for today is kind of spawned out of a poll that we asked you guys to answer, and that is, who would win in a fight, Boba Fett or Din Djarin, or the Mandalorian as we know him from the show? So like I said, we did this poll a few weeks ago, and we asked you, and we got some decent interaction with it. Not a ton of people, but what was interesting is that the poll was literally 50-50. Like I don't remember how many people did it, but say 10 people did it. 5 said Din Djarin would win, and 5 said Boba Fett. So the fact that it was 50-50 was really cool, and it kind of spawned us to want to just talk about it a little bit because it's so torn. I think there's a lot of interesting points that we could pick out here.
Yeah, it's interesting that our listeners were so divided on this, right. And I have a feeling that after we talk about this, people may not like us as much.
I hope not, but we'll see.
Especially, what I'm curious about is if you and I have the same thoughts on this. I mean, we've not really.
Honestly, I've not really even thought what my answer is going to be, because I thought as we talk, maybe I'll start forming my own opinion.
So you don't really have an opinion?
I don't, not yet.
See, I think I do.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I think I do.
I don't know. I think I have an idea, but I'm kind of torn between them both. So anyway, we'll get into it. Yeah. We'll talk for a second, and we'll see what our answers are. Okay. So the first thing I want to lead off with is we have Din Djarin versus Boba Fett. So I think a big point that we need to kind of think about is it Din Djarin versus Boba Fett now? So as we see them in season 2 of The Mandalorian, or is it Din Djarin versus Boba Fett when Boba Fett was in his prime? Because as we know, Boba is like in his 60s, I guess. I don't really know off the top of my head, but I would say probably somewhere in his mid 60s if I had to guess by this point. And Din, I would imagine he's probably in his mid 30s or maybe late 30s. I don't know. And so as of right now, I would say there's probably a physical stamina, whatever, advantage to Din.
Well, let me stop you there, because Boba is only at max maybe 5 years older than Din Djarin is.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then maybe I'm just completely missing off. I didn't realize
because
that.
Boba Fett has to be like 41.
Now that I'm thinking about the timeline, that's like I was so off and out.
You and many others probably have thought the same thing because he looks pretty old.
Yeah.
Now part of that is because of being in the Sarlacc pit and all of that,
right?
But also, I think just the guy that plays him. Wow, I forgot his name all of a sudden.
Tamir Morrison.
Yeah, Tamir Morrison. I think
he actually is in his,
I think
60s.
he actually is kind of old, but
and I think also say he's like in his 60s or whatever, or like early 60s, late 50s, something like that.
Well,
right?
and what's funny though, who really is supposed to be like in their 60s,
right,
or 50s, late 50s, is Bo-Katan, who looks like he's like
right.
30. So
right, exactly. So yeah, there's a little bit of
so it's
a little off. Yeah, now that you say that, yeah,
they don't want you to think too much about the ages in Star Wars.
So, but that gives rise though to the same question. Maybe not the age difference may not be necessarily too much off, but I will say this though: Boba Fett's definitely not his prime, right? I mean, he's still awesome, he still kicked butt, but I think we could sit here and identify maybe what his prime was, and how Boba Fett would compare to Din Djarin versus his prime and where he's at now. So, in your opinion, when do you think Boba Fett's prime was?
I would argue that it maybe is the most recent
Really?
version of Boba Fett.
Really? Okay. So what makes you say that? Because in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, this man's kind of been out of business, so to speak, for a few years now. He got out of the Sarlacc pit. He didn't have his armor. He was kind of, in my mind, he's kind of hiding out because he never sought his armor out and stuff like that.
I think as far as that stuff goes, yes, the odds are against him. But when you think about, I think just the wisdom that he has gotten.
True. Yeah.
When we see Boba Fett as a teenager, he's this brash kid who's just seeking revenge and just full of anger and hate.
Yeah.
And then as have seen, and basically in between that, really the only time we've seen Boba Fett is from like the Darth Vader comics,
right?
More than anything else. And at that point, he is a bounty hunter, and he's willing to do about whatever he needs to get a job done.
Yeah.
Now, as far as his physical peakness is probably in around that period of time that we see him in the original trilogy, right? Like I'd say he's doing pretty good.
Yeah, and that's what my thought was. I feel like maybe his peak would be somewhere around where Empire Strikes Back, where he's standing there with Vader, and he's kind of he is the one that Vader calls on bounty hunter wise to go do stuff. Like in my mind, and it may not be true, but I'm just thinking like just out of perception at least, that's when I would say like Empire is probably where his prime was. You know what I'm saying? He's full-time bounty hunter. He's doing stuff for the Empire all the time, and that was my thought.
But see, I'm looking a little past just the physicality of it and looking more at like also where he's at mentally, and I think somewhere between his Sarlacc pit and like you were saying, he's seems kind of maybe out of business, but I think he's also learned a lot in that time.
Yeah.
And you see it just with him using the gaffy stick. Like he's learned some stuff. I think maybe you know what I mean? Like I don't know
he's
that
got
he knew
some
how to
training.
do that.
I think he got some
then.
training with the Tusken Raiders and stuff like that.
Yeah. But I think in that time he has found a new layer of himself he didn't have before. And in that I think he's found some wisdom and I think it in the long run has made him an even more dangerous opponent to an enemy.
Well,
and so I stand and choose to believe that Boba is at his peak.
Yeah,
in the Mandalorian.
I could see that because here's the thing: you could be at your physical peak, but if your mental well-being is really off, right, and you're not in the right mindset, that can throw you off. As the Bible says, a double-minded man is unstable in all of his ways. I got to bring the Bible in some point. Yeah, no, but no. In all seriousness, though, if he could be at his physical peak in Empire, right? But yet if he's like so like just distraught and hates people and hates Mace Windu and all this stuff like that because his dad died and he's still dwelling on all that, it could throw him off. And now that he's maybe kind of reconciled that out in the desert and trained with the Tusken Raiders and got this new mindset and more confidence and more coolness, calmness, you know what I'm saying? That might help him. So I agree. I could definitely see where you would come into that for sure. So
and just one of the biggest ways is look at Boba Fett did everything he did for money and for just whatever the code needed or whatever. But now we see him in the Mandalorian, and he's different. Like he chooses to help because it's the right thing to do.
Well, as you see in that episode where he's like, well, you got your ship back or whatever, and you got your armor back, so you can go off saying, no, you don't have your child still, so I'll help you. You know what I'm saying? I don't think he would have ever done that before.
Yeah, no, I don't know that he would have. I think he's found a new life in a sense, and I'm excited to see more of that story of how that transition becomes. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on it. What's the next part of this?
So the first question I had was like when he was at his prime. Is it now or before? So the next part of my questions was this. So we got to think about their training. So how does their training equate to one another? So Din Djarin, was pretty much as a foundling, was pretty much formally trained by the Death Watch, like all of his life. He was part of the Watch and stuff like that. So all of his life, he was trained by the Death Watch to be this foundling Mandalorian warrior. Because as we know, right, the Death Watch is hardcore. Like, hey, the Mandalorians were warriors, so they trained him from birth to be a warrior, right? Guaranteed. Second of all, where was I going with that? Oh, and then also he grew up in a coven of Mandalorians. And as you could tell from the first season, they're like constantly fighting and there's going hand-to-hand combat. So, not only was he trained, but even in his times of peace, right, Din Djarin is fighting. So that's his training. So now let's look at Boba Fett's training. So Boba Fett was never formally trained by like this group. Now I'm sure he learned a few things from his father, Jango, for a little bit before he died. Maybe not much, but maybe a little bit. And who knows? Maybe he trained on Camino with the clones, and maybe a little bit. I would say probably not, because as adamant as Jango was with him not being a clone, maybe he wouldn't want him trained in there. But who knows? But for the majority of Boba's life, he was trained with all of these bounty hunters. Like, he was a bounty hunter. He interacted with bounty hunters. He's had dealings with Asajj Ventress and a few things like that. So his whole life has been, rather than just straight up training, it's been like real world experience. So he may not have all the formal training, but he has the real world experience from fighting, being with bounty hunters, and doing that kind of stuff all of his life. And now that we're talking about it, he may even have some possible training with the Tusken Raiders later on after he gets out of the Sarlacc pit. So in your opinion, this was the second part, in your opinion, whose training do you think was better? And not just better necessarily as a generic term, but whose training do you think more prepares them for a battle? Din Djarin's or Boba Fett's, from what I said? It's a hard question.
Yeah. Well, again, I think I'm going to go with Boba Fett.
Yeah.
And the reasoning for that is, if you look at Din Djarin, he was, trained by the Death Watch, we assume, right?
Yeah.
Boba Fett originally probably began some training with his father, Jango, who I'm sure, as we know now, was getting some Mandalorian training. So he got some of that probably through his father. But on top of that, maybe even some of the training that clone troopers went through at a young age.
Yeah.
And then once he leaves from there, he basically begins to get trained from all these different bounty hunters who kind of let him join in on him. So he starts to learn all these different ways of taking on a fight, because all these bounty hunters do it differently.
Yeah.
And so while Din Djarin has a very focused one kind of teaching, I think Boba Fett has had a very, very wide range of teaching, and also even more recent years, as we've talked, maybe even some with the Tusken Raiders, and maybe brought in that whole other way of fighting. And so again, I think Boba Fett has probably has to take it for me.
I could definitely see, I'm thinking I'm kind of leaning towards that as well. I feel like it's kind of close, because it's kind of like they're so different. How do I say this? Basically, yes, it's like being a specialist versus being a handy, like a jack of all trades kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? And that's like, what's better? Like, and that's kind of been like in any industry, say that 3 times fast, in any industry, that is something that is always a question, right? Is it better to be a specialist, or is it better to be a jack of all trades? So with Mando, with Djarin, he's more of a specialist, right? He's been trained in one way, and he's done it his whole life, and he's perfect to some degree, right? At this one way he does it. Mm-hmm. Now Boba, he may not be perfect in all the ways, but he's trained in so many different ways that he I guess I could see it as he's experienced so many different fighting styles that he probably has a good idea of how to combat any person that he comes against.
Right, and be able to switch when needed and that kind of thing, yeah.
So, excuse me. So my final question, actually, we kind of already talked about, I guess, is how does both of their exposures make them better or worse, right? And we kind of already said that, right? So Din had lived in a coven with Mandos, so he's constantly fighting, he's constantly getting that training, but yet he's not getting exposed to a ton of other people. Now, he does become a bounty hunter later in life, as we know, and he does have that experience kind of like Boba, though, too, because he may not live with bounty hunters all the time, but he is constantly fighting them, and he's constantly fighting the people that he's coming against, but maybe not as much as Boba. And granted, like I said, Boba is usually by himself most of the time, especially later in life. He's not hanging out with a bunch of bounty hunters. Now, as we see in Empire, he is there with IG-88. He's there with I can't remember all of them off the top of my head. But he's there with a lot of them, but he's not like hanging out with them, right? They're just like at the beck and call of the Empire. Hey, come! All the Mandalorians come to this meeting, or bounty hunters come to this meeting. So what I'm saying is, does Din Djarin's exposure to constantly fighting with people and constantly, even in his peaceful times, does that give him an advantage at all, or is it kind of negligible in your mind? I dig deep on this one.
Yeah, you did. It's good questions. Good questions. Ask me it one more time.
Okay, well, I'll give you the I'll give you the condensed version.
Yeah, the condensed
basically,
version one more time.
Boba was by himself a lot of times.
Yeah.
Right? He wasn't living with a bunch of people. Yes, he fought a lot of people, but he had rest times where he's alone, he traveled alone. But does the fact that Din, he was a bounty hunter, he's fighting, but even in his peaceful times, he was living in this coven, and he fought with all of these other Mandalorians like all the time. They were probably sparring, or they got in arguments and fought. Does that fact that he's even in his peaceful times is still fighting, does that give him an edge at all in fighting or whatever, right?
No, I don't think so. I think that for Din and Boba, from what we know, neither of them ever had a peaceful time.
Sure.
They've always just been trying to survive, essentially.
Right.
And in different ways, and you could argue that both of them have chosen to live a life of just trying to survive.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I think I think that they're always on edge. They're always prepared. I think for both of them, they're always training. They're always making sure that they're ready for the next attack. The next, you know what I mean. So I think on that terms, they're equal.
Yeah. Okay. I think I agree with you on that. So knowing all the things that we know, right? So going over the 3 questions that I had. So when they're in their prime versus when they're not in their prime, knowing all the training that both of them have, and knowing all the experience and the time they spent with people and who they're around and all these things. Overall, who do you think would win, Din Djarin or Boba Fett?
So can I throw in one more thing to it that we could maybe talk about?
Go ahead.
And that's in terms of their gear.
Okay.
And like the technology that they use. Because we know that Mando's got some pretty neat things. He's got like his little missiles that he shoots out of his arm. He's got his big rifle that like disintegrates people.
Yeah.
Now he has the spear. He's got, what else does he have? You think of anything else like specific?
Not necessarily off the top of my head, but yeah.
Well, and then on Boba Fett, we know he has his jetpack he can shoot the missile out of.
Yeah.
He's got like
Got tons of little blasters everywhere.
yeah, he's got another one he can shoot like out of his hand or something. I don't even know exactly where it's at, but like we see it in the Mandalorian where he like hits the guy with it.
Right. Actually, we do see in Rebels, the Mandalorian gauntlet has like this repulsor feature, and I'm assuming that might be something what it is. So
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he's got something like that.
Yeah.
He's got the
kneecap blaster.
Yeah, the kneecap blaster. So he's got some different things like that. That
one disadvantage I do want to bring up is we don't know this for a fact, but I'm under the presumption that Boba's helmet is not Beskar, because that is not the original helmet that he gets or that he has. Because if you remember in Clone Wars, he takes Jango's helmet and blows it up to try to kill Mace Windu, and there's a dent from a blaster bolt. So in Legends, at least, was supposedly from Cad Bane.
So there's a lot of speculation on the helmet of Boba Fett, and I would love for somebody just to clear it up from
exactly.
Lucasfilm just to get it over with. But some people believe he did use his father's helmet. Other people believe that he used like some kind of fake copy of it to blow up, because he wouldn't have blown up his actual father's helmet.
That's possible. That's definitely possible. Unless he thought it was like, as a Mandalorian, this was sacrifice, and like this was his father's last piece of revenge. Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah. So I don't really know the answer to that one. Like I said, I wish we had a for sure answer, but I don't really know that we do. I know a lot of people argue about it though.
Right. Exactly.
I personally, I think it's dumb to have blown up that helmet, so I like to think it's still the original one, because I think it has more meaning if that helmet is the one that Jango Fett wore.
Yeah,
I think it has more meaning.
I agree.
Than if he blew it up and then he just like went and got a copy of it made that's not Beskar. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
I've also read some people claim that like the dent in the helmet is just because what was that bounty hunter's name?
Cad Bane.
Well, he's Cad Bane, and the weapon he used was just like on another level.
Something more.
Yeah, like and he was able to make a dent in the helmet, which was like, well, that shouldn't even be possible, but it's Cad Bane, and that was kind of
an interesting thing. I wonder what would happen. This is totally off topic, but I wonder what happened if you took a disintegrator rifle and shot Beskar with it.
Yeah, I
wonder what would happen. Anyway. No, I agree. I think that's a good point. I think it's a really good point to compare some of their armament.
So who do you think has the edge?
Personally, I personally think that Din probably has the better armor and possibly the better armament. I do think, because here's the thing, a lot of Boba's is geared as a bounty hunter, geared towards somebody who doesn't have Beskar. So he has a lot of blasters which are going to deflect off Beskar. He doesn't have anything that's going to necessarily pierce Beskar like the Beskar spear. Now the rocket's really nice, and he has the repulsor on his wrist. So, but overall, I would say for myself that Din Djarin probably has a little bit better gear. Now that's exclusive to just the gear. I'm not saying that's who would win, but I'm just saying I think personally he has a little bit better gear. Well,
especially if we compare them during the Mandalorian time,
right?
As we know, like Boba's stuff's pretty old and beat up. He then gets like a updated paint job, but still like. His stuff doesn't necessarily. His stuff's outdated compared to what Din.
And also, you have to think about Din also has it from like head to toe, and Boba only has it like up to his like navel, cavity.
Yeah. And so I think Din Djarin gets the edge here, and so with that being said, if you look at based off what we've just said, Boba is technically winning right now. If we're talking and just in the terms of what we've talked about, but personally now, because you said you hadn't really made a decision.
I have made a decision.
You have made a decision.
I have made a decision.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
after talking about it, so first of all, I will say I think it would be very, very close. I think it is very close. I don't think that one of them has just this outshining, like, okay, this is a clear winner. That's just my opinion. Of course, everybody has different opinions, but I don't think there's either of them has, like, it's just this clear-cut winner. But I will say after everything that we've talked about, Din Djarin definitely has a lot of better perks. He has full head-to-toe armor. He has a Beskar spear that can then potentially damage or pierce Beskar. He has the Firefly rocket things, whatever they call them. So I think he has the edge in being that pointed specialist with better armor. But I would say personally, due to Boba's his experience fighting all kinds of different styles of people, the exposure that he has to different situations and scenarios, and plus having pretty decent armament himself. Personally, I would say that it would be very close, and I think that he would leave very damaged. But I think Boba Fett would win. What do you think?
Yep. I agree.
Boo! Copycat.
We have no argument.
Yeah,
well, I think Boba Fett would probably win. I agree with you that I think it'd be a very close fight. Mm-hmm. I think they both would use everything possible you can imagine before one of them would go down.
Yeah.
But I think that Boba Fett in the end would win. First of all, I think he does have a little bit more experience over Din. He's seen a little more, and I think he has the edge there.
Yeah.
But I also think that Boba's maybe willing to not hesitate to take the kill. A little more so than Din might be. Now we've seen Din. We've seen Din do some pretty he's ready to shoot somebody. But we've also seen him do some hesitation as well in certain ways.
And I do think that Grogu had changed him a little bit because of that.
Yeah, a lot of that has to do with Grogu.
And you got to think also though that in his time of wisdom that he's been gaining, that Boba might have a little more hesitation as well.
True.
So that's the thing to consider as well.
True. But for me, I mean, let's just look at the scene where they both are fighting together. You have Mando. He's got his gun and he's standing out in the middle of all of them because he's wearing Beskar and he's just taking the shots and he's shooting and stuff. But it kind of seems like he's gonna end up in trouble if
maybe a little too reliant on his equipment.
Yeah, like they're about to overwhelm him if something doesn't change, which is when Boba Fett shows up. Now, when you look at Boba Fett, he takes on a ton of stormtroopers without even using a gun.
That's true.
And doesn't get shot once.
Yeah, that's true. Which stormtrooper versus Din Djarin, though, in terms of accuracy and things, that you guys consider that a little bit too. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I mean, it's not really maybe even a. I'm just saying for in that scene when you see what Din Djarin does versus
I see what you're saying though.
It shows to me it shows a little more experience on Boba Fett's side of what he's capable of.
I will say on a side note, I will say this is one thing we didn't consider is who we don't really see it as much with Boba Fett in terms basically who's more accurate with a shot. And
we know Din Djarin is
a sharpshooter,
insanely accurate.
As we see in the Ahsoka episode, he doesn't even look. In terms of some guy comes up over a roof and just turns around, doesn't even turn around and just shoots him. So that's one thing we didn't consider. I still am firm on my answer, but I would almost say.
Well, so we do see Boba Fett basically do the same thing. He gets they throw him a gun at some point, right, and then he just starts.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure he just starts taking him out with a gun too.
One thing I would combat with that, and I agree with it, but we do see in that episode that he shoots that ship, and he does say "Oh, nice shot." He's like, "Well, I was aiming for the other one." Yeah. So he does admit that he's not as maybe as good a shot as he used to be.
Yeah, but that was with his
which I know it's different
nav computer thing.
Well, technically, even then though, I don't. Maybe he's assuming, or maybe he's insinuating that the armor's old. I don't know. I mean, anyway, so it's negligible. I don't think that point matters as much. But
I think Din could maybe win if Boba had Grogu and was going to kill. Grogu,
he had a good reason to really fight.
Maybe that would make him because what we've seen, if nothing else, what we've seen from Din Djarin is he does what he has to do to we've seen him get beat up a lot throughout the
Yeah.
2 seasons, but like he survived. He's a survivor.
Yeah.
And he'll do whatever it takes to make sure that kid's okay.
Yeah.
And but you know, in the same sense, Boba Fett's a survivor too. I mean, he went in a Sarlacc pit, and yet somehow he's alive.
Yeah.
And
True.
I think in the end it's very, very close. And that's
Yeah.
why I think our listeners made it 50-50.
That's why I was 50-50.
Because
Yeah.
in the end, it is really close. It's a hard decision.
Yeah.
But I think I have to stick with Boba Fett.
I think I'm on the same place. I mean, and the thing is, for me, it's almost, I wouldn't say it's almost a flip of a coin, but to me, it's almost like a flip of a coin. To me, I think that, like, if the opportunities, like, you know, if luck was on one other side, I think that would, you know, it would turn the tide a little bit. You know what I'm saying? You know, if something bad happened and one of them slipped and fell, that's going to help you more, and Din might win or something. But I think it's super, super close. But I just think, comparing all the things that we talked about, I do agree. I think that Boba would have a little bit of an edge and would win. So, with all that being said, we went really deep today. We were joking about how we wouldn't have much to say, and here we are at an hour and 42 minutes.
Well, Alex Mason, you got your wish. You asked for
Thanks
more.
a lot,
and you
dude.
got
You
it.
cursed us with the gift of gab.
Well, you know, we'll cut it down a little bit. We have a portion to cut out.
That's true. That's true.
I don't know how many minutes it was, but
Andrew was having a little trouble. So
I was having a little bit.
yeah. So if you hear a weird glitch at the beginning, you'll know what it is.
You'll know why.
I wasn't gonna say.
Maybe about next week or something.
No, I wasn't gonna say. Well, I wasn't gonna mention that, but I was gonna say. You made me forget it again. What in the world? Oh my gosh.
My apologies, sir.
Oh, I was gonna say this episode I've noticed was maybe not as like humorous. You know, sometimes we've had episodes where we just like was laughing 65% of the time. But one thing I really liked about this episode, those of you who love Star Wars and likes lore and likes talk, you know, we got really deep into lore this week.
We did get deep into
a lot
lore,
of different things.
Yeah, in a lot of different ways there. So,
So
it was a more serious episode. But it's good to have those every once in a while.
I agree. So I'm hoping everybody enjoyed that. You know, we're still you know, we're not depressed or anything. Well, sort of. Anyway. No, I was saying.
Speak for yourself.
No, I was gonna say, you know, we're still gonna have some fun episodes, of course, and stuff like that. But this one was just more of like, hey, let's dig deep into the lore. So I hope you guys enjoyed that this week. Went a little bit long, per usual, but at this point, it's kind of normal. So without further ado, we're gonna go ahead and conclude for the week. Do want to remind everybody that if you're listening to the end, thank you for continuing to listen to us if we go on for a while. But we just remind everybody that next Saturday, so Saturday the 30th at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will be having our big 1 year anniversary live stream. At that point, we're gonna have we're gonna have a schedule as we get closer. But it's going to be super fun. I'm not going to bore you with the details because we already said it. We're going to have really fun schedule with some trivia, giveaways. We're going to have a merch drop and just so much really cool stuff to celebrate our 1 year anniversary and kind of like set a foundation for our future growth. So please be there. Please share it. We're going to try to make an event thing. Please share that and see if you can get some friends to come and watch us and interact and stuff. And we would really appreciate it and we would love it. So again, we just want to thank everybody so much for your continued support towards our podcast, and we look forward to hearing from each and every one of you. Please like and follow us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram for weekly polls, news, discussions, memes, and more. Please also follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and if you could, please leave us a good review. That would mean a lot to us. But we thank you so much for listening, and we hope that you join us next week for episode 47, which is our 1 year anniversary episode that we're going to do. But last but not least, may the Force be with you, and we thank you for joining the Jedi Eternal.